Mr. Mohd Fahmi Aliman.
Mr. Speaker, sir, this has traditionally been a time when we as a nation delineate our goals and aspirations for the year ahead. It's thus imperative that we renew our commitment and resolve to uplift society as Singapore continues to recover from the calamities of the pandemic. I am encouraged by the central theme of this year's budget. As we continue to find ways to deal with ever-evolving nature of the pandemic, we must also set our eyes on how we can prepare Singaporeans for the post-pandemic future. Only by doing so can we chart our new way forward together. My esteemed colleagues and I in the labour movement strongly support and welcome the slew of measures introduced to alleviate the hardship that Singaporeans have experienced as a result of the pandemic, as well as improve all facets of society as we transit to a post-pandemic future. I'm heartened to note that the government will be allocating more resources to help vulnerable groups in society. As we chart our way forward, we should remain sensitive to challenges and concerns of our vulnerable workers, especially our lower wage workers and migrant workers. The best way to help workers cope with cost of living is through better wages and better jobs. Speaker, allow me to elaborate. Many of our lower wage workers are frontliners in our nation's fight against the pandemic, spanning from security to cleaning sectors. Our workers have taught to keep Singapore safe. As the number of COVID-19 cases soared, our workers continue to work tirelessly to keep Singapore going. In doing so, they stepped up despite the risk of their health and took on additional precautions to limit the transmission of COVID-19 in our community. In my budget speech last year, I spoke about the ongoing efforts to support lower wage workers. In particular, I reiterated that the formation of the tripartite work group on lower wage workers is a testament to our commitment to ensure that the interests of our lower wage workers are protected. Over the past years, the collective support from various stakeholders groups to uplift the incomes of our lower wage workers have been encouraging. NTUC, alongside our tripartite partners and various other stakeholder groups, will remain committed to help workers improve their income insecurity and quality of life and give them confidence in navigating their careers, equipping them to participate in the new growth opportunities. But how can we work towards this goal? What are some areas we can continue to look into? Firstly, the introduction of the Progressive Wage Credit Scheme, or PWCS for short, is pivotal, as it will provide traditional wage support for employers to adjust to upcoming mandatory wage increases for lower wage workers covered by the progressive wage and local qualifying salary requirements. It would also allow employers to voluntarily raise wages for lower wage workers. Under this scheme, the government will co-fund wage increases of eligible residents employees from 2022 to 2026. The introduction of the PWCS is a step in the right direction and will go a long way in uplifting and supporting lower wage workers. Having said that, at NTUC, we are cognizant that efforts to help lower wage workers is a long-term strategy. As more sectors and occupations are incorporated into PWM, there will be a greater need to rethink the duration of transitory support new sectors will receive under the PWCS beyond 2026. Therefore, I would like to know how new sectors incorporated into PWM between 2025 and 2026 will be supported. In particular, I would like to know if the government will make special provisions for these industries. On the subject of PWM expansion, and as mentioned in my budget speech last year, NTUC has identified two sectors for the implementation of PWM, namely strata and facilities management and pest management. NTUC has conducted several engagements with stakeholders in the respective sectors. and the response have been very encouraging thus far. In this regard, I would like to take this opportunity to call on the government to seriously consider our proposal to implement PWM in the two sectors. Secondly, on the related note, it's imperative that we look at the parallel efforts to complement PWM in sectors which services are outsourced. We ought to incentivize service buyers from the private sector to adopt outcome-based contracting to ensure that PWM wage increases are sustainable in the long run. Consumers and service buyers should also become more socially responsible and reject service providers that provide services at low cost but at the expense of the welfare of such essential service workers. Instead, service buyers should adopt an outcome-based contracting model where contractors are awarded to companies which progressively employ practices that give due recognition to workers rather than basing these decisions on price alone. In 2019, NTUC launched the Smart Sourcing Initiatives that gives funding to service buyers in security, cleaning, and landscape sectors that implement outcome-based contracts and train procurement staff to be familiar with the best sourcing principles. The introduction of this initiative is encouraging, but it also reminds us that there are sufficient opportunities and latitude to incentivize service buyers from the private sector to adopt outcome-based contracting. In order to do this, I call on government to provide funding for trade associations to engage consultants to develop an outcome-based contract guides. Depending on industry, the consultant would develop bespoke guides for employers in varying industries. By incentivizing private sectors employers to implement outcome-based contracts, due recognition can be accorded to our workers, ensure that they can progress and perform higher value roles, and our PWM wage increases will be more sustainable in the long run. Another vulnerable group adversely impacted by the pandemic would be our migrant workers. I will not be the first to thank our migrant workers for their hard work and contribution to the development of our nation, all while working in challenging conditions distant from their homes and loved ones. NTUC has perennially been advocating for enhanced medical coverage for the welfare and safety of our migrant workers. We are pleased that the government has ceded our calls for greater protection. At NTUC, we strongly believe that our migrant workers deserve to be insured against risks within and beyond the workplace. In December last year, NTUC Migrant Workers Center, MWC, introduced its associate membership to offer holistic protections and benefits that are specifically tailored to serve migrant workers' lifestyle needs. In exchange for the membership for about $24 per annum, our migrant workers will be insured up to $10,000 in terms of life insurance against critical illness, such non-work-related death, as well as total and permanent disability. Collectively, I am confident that the government provision and enhanced protection and NTUC MWC's associate membership program will ensure that our migrant workers are well protected against uncertainties. To ensure that our migrant workers are insured within and beyond the workplace, I call on government to mandate or incentivize companies to sponsor the membership fee for their workers. Early last year, it was reported that more than 97% of employers with foreign workers living in dormitories were paying salaries electronically, up from 76% beyond the requirement was introduced in April 2020. The Ministry of Manpower also claimed that the electronic payment of salaries has been proven to be beneficial, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, because it ensures that foreign workers continue to receive salaries even when there are movement restrictions in place. Once again, I urge the government to consider mandating electronic payment of salary for migrant workers to protect themselves from exploitation. Speaker, in Malay, please. Dalam ucapan belanjawan tahun ini, pemerintah mengumumkan pakej bantuan keluarga tambahan yang menyediakan bantuan untuk keperluan harian, pakej jaminan GST bagi melegakan impak daripada kenaikan GST yang dirancangkan, dan pendekatan skim voucher GST tetap yang memberi bantuan berterusan untuk menampung GST atas pembelajaan keluarga Singapura berpendapatan rendah hingga sederhana, melebihi sokongan peralihan yang terkandung dalam pakej jaminan. Bantuan juga dihulurkan kepada mereka yang berpendapatan rendah untuk menangani kos kehidupan yang semakin meningkat. Misalnya, skim baucer pengangkutan awam 2021 akan dilanjutkan supaya keluarga-keluarga berpendapatan rendah akan dapat menampung sebarang penyelesaian pada tambang pengangkutan mereka. Skim-skim sebegini yang diumumkan oleh pemerintah sudah pasti akan membantu menampung kos kehidupan keluarga Singapura, termasuk masyarakat Melayu Islam Singapura. Dengan memperkukuhkan kontrak sosial kita, bantuan yang diberikan bukan sekadar menampung kos pembelanjaan, bahkan memberi peluang kepada semua warga demi meneguhkan tonggak-tonggak sokongan sosial kita. Kita akan dapat menumpukan perhatian pada pendidikan anak-anak kita melalui perluasan skim uplift dan kickstart yang membantu ramai kanak-kanak daripada keluarga berpendapatan rendah. Belanjawan ini amat besar faedahnya kepada keluarga Melayu Islam Singapura dalam menangani kos kehidupan sambil Singapura beralih kepada masa depan pasca pandemik. Sebahagian besar keluarga rakyat Singapura akan mendapat bantuan bernilai sekurang-kurangnya 5 tahun perbelanjaan GST tambahan. Keluarga-keluarga kita patut merebut peluang ini untuk, pertama, meneruskan usaha mencari pekerjaan yang mantap demi perlindungan kita sekarang dan masa depan. Yang kedua, mengalahkan suami isteri supaya kembali bekerja demi menyara hidup keluarga. Dan ketiga, meningkatkan kebolehan dan kemahiran demi bersiap sedia untuk bekerja dalam sektor-sektor yang mengalami pertumbuhan. Kita semua dapat meneladani saudara Ahmad Sadiq, 47 tahun, yang tidak jemu-jemu belajar sepanjang hayat. Demi menempuh masa depan yang lebih berjaya, saudara Ahmad Sadiq mengambil kursus untuk menaiki tangga akademik secara sambilan, bermula dengan NITEC, Teknologi Mekanikal, kemudian Diploma Kejuruteraan Mekanikal dan akhirnya Sarjana Muda Teknologi Mekanikal dengan kepujian cemerlang. Semua pendidikan ini dibiayai sendiri dan samping grant pengajian daripada Kesatuan Pekerja Perbekalan Kuasa dan Gas (UPH) serta kredit Skill Future. Sebagai jurutera mekanikal dan kini sebagai pemimpin kesatuan, beliau terus memperjuangkan pembelajaran sepanjang hayat dan memimpin melalui teladan. Beliau sekarang mengambil kursus pengurus tenaga dengan sokongan syarikatnya dan bercadang untuk mengikuti beberapa kursus pendek yang sejajar dengan minatnya. Seterusnya, NTUC juga akan berganding bahu dengan masyarakat Melayu Islam bagi menangani pelbagai keperluan dan persoalan masyarakat. Di NTUC kami sangat yakin bahawa pendekatan yang terbaik ialah memperkasakan pekerja kita untuk mendapatkan pekerjaan yang lebih baik dengan gaji lebih tinggi melalui kemahiran yang lebih tinggi. Pada 24 Februari lalu, melalui sebuah memorandum persefahaman, NTUC merasmikan kerjasama dengan Yayasan Mendaki untuk kedua-dua pihak memanfaatkan jaringan dan sumber-sumber masing-masing demi menjayakan pekerjaan dan daya pekerja di kalangan pekerja Melayu Singapura. MOU ini adalah sebahagian daripada strategi utama M Kuasa 3 dalam bidang fokus keempat untuk mengangkat taraf hidup masyarakat Melayu Singapura. Kerjasama ini satu contoh utama yang unggul bagaimana NTUC meluaskan usaha kita untuk memperkasakan pekerja, menempa kerjasama dan rakan kongsi di kalangan badan-badan komuniti dan bantu diri demi memperkuatkan jangkauan kita kepada pekerja dan komuniti yang akan meraih faedah dari sumber-sumber latihan dan penempatan pekerjaan di peringkat kebangsaan. Kami akan menjayakan dengan memanfaatkan ekosistem latihan kami, merangkumi NTUC Learning Hub dan E2I. Dan melalui ekosistem ini, usaha masyarakat Melayu Islam untuk menjalin latihan dan meningkatkan kemahiran dapat dipupuk lagi dan ditingkatkan skalanya supaya mereka dapat tetap bekerja dan berdaya saing di pasaran pekerjaan. Pemimpin kesatuan dari kalangan Melayu Islam juga ditugaskan di bandar-bandar M Kawasan 3 demi mendorong tenaga kerja Melayu Islam dan memberikan sokongan jarak penamat untuk penempatan pekerjaan. Bak pepatah, yang bulat tidak datang menggolek, yang pipih tidak datang melayang. NTUC akan terus bekerjasama dengan syarikat-syarikat dalam usaha menubuhkan jawatan kuasa latihan syarikat CTC. Seperti ditekankan oleh saudara Teo Hantat dan rakan-rakan parlimen tadi, model CTC ini menghimpunkan kesatuan pekerja dan majikan demi membangunkan pelan transformasi yang padu di peringkat firma, termasuk latihan terkait yang diperlukan oleh pekerja mereka. Melalui syarikat yang menyertai CTC, kita dapat mengandalkan impak kita untuk membantu lebih ramai pekerja menjalani latihan dan meningkatkan kemahiran. Dengan sokongan berterusan dari masyarakat, usaha NTUC akan dapat menjayakan perjuangan kita untuk mengangkat taraf hidup masyarakat Melayu Islam Singapura. So in conclusion, the COVID-19 pandemic has tested our resilience as a nation. Singaporeans have remained steadfast despite the challenges they faced during the pandemic. Whilst we have come a long way, there is inevitably be many more challenges along the way. However, as a country, we have weathered similar storms and emerged stronger together. As we chart a new forward together, the government and NTUC are committed to helping workers in every step of the way and will continue our fight for a fairer and more progressive society for all. Rest assured, NTUC will continue to champion all workers because every worker matters. Sir, I support the budget. Thank you.